Attention, flight away passengers.
Alright, let me say this properly. The next time you fly with Fly Dubai, you might hear a familiar voice. Yes, mine. Unbox the podcast with Sahar is now available on board. So imagine this. You're in the sky, somewhere between where you are now and where you are going, and at the same time, you're traveling within yourself. No downloads, no planning, just press play. And yes, I'm officially your flight companion now. So the next time you fly, let us travel together to new places, new thoughts, new perspective, and deeper awareness. See you on board. I want to start by saying something. This episode is late, I know. I usually release on time every Tuesday. But this time there were reasons, real reasons. The first is I don't plan my episodes. I wait for a signal. I wait for something to move me enough to speak about it. I tune into you, my clients, the listeners, and I try to sense what you're going through now. And if I'm not moved, or if I feel I have nothing to say, I simply don't record. But the second reason is that we had a bit of ceasefire here in Dubai and a moment of quiet, no sound of missiles, thanks heaven. So I did something very simple. I slept. I caught up on rest and I went to see my nieces and my grandnephews. I hadn't seen them for a while. And also my sister-in-law's here, their grandmother, and it was just fantastic to be with everyone. I needed that. I needed the family warmth. I needed the connection. With children especially, because they bring you into the present. They expect you to respond from the now, and it's always interesting to see what comes out of me when I'm with them, what they reflect back without even trying. And the third reason is that I had entered a competition called the Emirati Article Award, and recently I have been drawn to more writing, cultural reviews, and articles in Arabic. And I think completing my first Arabic poetry collection has triggered something in me. So I followed it. The ceremony was held today at Mohammed bin Rashid Library, which is truly a beautiful space. No, I didn't win, but I left with something far more important, which is clarity. Because something happened there that made me immediately know what this episode needed to be about. So here it is. Hello and welcome back to Unbox the podcast. I'm Sahar Huneidi Palmer and you're listening to episode 15, Why You Feel Off. Are you performing your life? We're on season 26 and the theme is the courage to be you. I had an interesting meeting with a 12-year-old this morning who approached me with a huge smile. We started chatting before the ceremony began and it turns out she's a content creator. She has more than 47,000 followers on YouTube and her message is encouraging her generation to visit libraries instead of being glued to screens. At first, I didn't even understand what she meant when she said not to be glued to the blue screen. Then she pointed out to her phone. Well, my phone, she wasn't carrying one. She told me that everything started the day she lost her mobile or dropped it, and suddenly she experienced a sense of freedom and mental clarity. Her words, not mine. Losing her phone made her realize that she could use her mind differently. She started going to libraries, and that triggered everything else that followed. Perhaps. But during the entire conversation, she didn't pause once, she didn't hesitate, she had an answer ready for every question. When she does her videos, usually her mother films her, and there's another relative who takes reels and B-rolls. She visited libraries across the country in the UAE, and she told me that her audience grew organically. She wears the same outfit in all her videos, sort of a trademark. She's very pleasant. She has a pleasant demeanor, strong people skills, and direct eye contact. I didn't see her parents around, and I don't know if they were. She sat on her own just in front of me. So when we were talking, I asked her, "How do your subscribers find you?" She said very simply, "They know. My generation is savvy. They found my channel, they liked the content, and they followed." She also spoke about how technology is misused, how it robs children of their mind, how it affects their development. She used phrases that sounded very considered, very deliberate. We had an interesting conversation. She told me that at first her content appealed to early teenagers, like 15, 16-year-old, and then it expanded to her own age group. I tell you, she knows her statistics, she knows her audience. So I asked her, "Were you today visiting the library?" She said no. She had submitted an article for the competition, the same competition, and she came to see if she had won. And I remember thinking, how impressive. A child entering a serious competition alongside other writers, journalists, adults. But I'll tell you something honestly. Not for a moment did I feel that I was speaking to a child. It felt like I was talking to someone in their 20s. She was scanning the room, making eye contact, smiling, initiating conversations. She knew exactly how to engage. So I asked her what she wrote about for the competition. She said she wanted the authorities to pay attention to children and to encourage them to visit libraries. At first, she said she wanted the government, and I went, "Government?" And then she used authorities. Clever girl. And then a question stayed with me. Was she authentic? What's more, was she living her childhood? Because, yes, she had presence, she had strategy, she had understood her content, her niche, even her audience avatar. But something didn't add up for me. I found myself feeling quiet sadness. Not because she wasn't capable, she clearly is. Her parents seemed supportive and dedicated to help her, but because her childhood, in my experience, was something else. When I was a child, we were playing, we were up to no good, we were mixing with other children, we were discovering life through experience, through boredom, through curiosity, through interaction. That is how we developed interests. That is how we found out what we were drawn to. And I found myself asking a difficult question. Is it right for a 12-year-old to be so focused on subscribers, followers, strategy, content positioning, and events? I have no doubt she will be successful. She may already be, if this is what she wants. Is it what she wants? Is this leadership? And here is where this becomes about you, because this episode isn't about her. It's about what she reflects. What I saw in her, I see in many adults, and some of my clients too. Highly functional, highly articulate, very clear on what they're doing, but actually disconnected from something deeper. And this is where the BEMA methodology becomes important. When you look at the body, emotions, mind, and accountability to action, we begin to see where something is aligned and where something is being structured. Her mind was very clear. Her accountability was strong. She was taking action consistently. But what about the body? What about the natural rhythm of development, rest, play, spontaneity? What about emotions? What is actually being felt or processed or lived without being turned into content? This isn't about judging her, it's about recognizing a pattern. Because you may be doing the same. You're showing up, you're producing, you're consistent, and you understand your audience, you're strategic, but something feels off. And you can't always explain why. That feeling is not confusion, it is misalignment. Because when your identity isn't fully lived, but instead it's managed or performed, there is a gap. And that gap is what eventually creates exhaustion or even emptiness. That feeling that something is missing when everything looks right. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in any part of it, this is where brand clarity becomes essential. Because what you present to the world should not be something you manage or perform. In order to be authentic, it should be direct expression of who you are. If there's a gap between the two, your audience will feel it. And more importantly, you will feel it too. My strategic brand clarity session is designed to close that gap, to align your identity with how you show up. So your presence becomes natural, not constructed or managed. To book your session, I will leave the link in the show notes. So when we talk about authenticity, we need to be very precise. Authenticity isn't about expression. It isn't about how clearly you communicate. And also, it isn't about how confident you appear. Authenticity is simply about coherence. When your body, your emotions, your mind, and your actions are aligned. It is when you're not only saying the right things, but living from the right place. And this is where I want you to reflect on yourself. Where in your life are you highly structured, but not fully connected? Where are you performing well, but not actually present? Where are you clear in your mind, but something in your body or emotions is not included in that clarity? Because that is where your real work is. The courage to be you isn't about becoming more visible. It is not about becoming more strategic. It is about being honest enough to recognize when something is working on the outside, but not fully true on the inside. And then choosing to realign honestly without needing to perform it. Before I close this episode, I want you to sit with one question. Where in your life are you performing well, but not fully being yourself? And you don't need to answer it immediately. I just want you to notice it. If this episode gave you something to think about, please follow or subscribe to Unbox the podcast so you don't miss what comes up next. And if someone came to mind while you're listening, please share this episode with them. You will also find more tools and resources on my website, saharhunaidi.com. And if you want to connect with me through social links, you'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next Tuesday, stay true.